Hello and welcome to the Premier League season preview, a new series here on WhatCulture Football, where myself and Andrew Pollard are going to look ahead to the forthcoming season and see how the teams are set to do. We're going through team by team, a couple teams at a time. We've already done Arsenal and Aston Villa. If you want to go and check that one out, we'll start now, though, with the Bees, Brighton and Burnley. And Andrew Pollard, these are teams that we don't talk about too much on this channel. We probably should. They both did very well, first of all, to survive in the Premier League. That is the minimum requirement for these two teams. But Brighton surpassed my expectations completely. I had them 100% in the bottom three. Is there a danger, though, as we look forward to next season, of the dreaded second season syndrome, but just because they've got a new manager in Graham Potter, if that makes sense? Not new either. He's been there a year, but you know what I mean.
I feel you. I see where you're going with this. I see what you're getting at with second season syndrome, but I think with Graham Potter, I think he's one of those managers from what we've seen in the year he's been there, that the longer he's there, the more time he's had to implement his ideas, the better Brighton have looked. So for me, I think that I don't think there's that risk so much of second season syndrome. I think with him, it's more about he's crafting for the long game. I mean, obviously with Brighton, there's only so much you can do. There's only so many resources they have. I remember them nearly going bust back when they were in the same division as Wrexham many years ago. So to see where they've gone from to where they are is phenomenal. And I've always got a big soft spot for Brighton because of that. And I think they were 15th last season, 7 points clear relegation, which is very respectable for Graham Potter's first year in charge of the Seagulls. And I think it's just a case of he's just going to build on this for the next couple of seasons. And maybe Burnley, who we're going to get to in a bit, is maybe the model to aspire to in a way. Not the style of football, but just that very resourceful way of thinking.
Yeah, like I said, I think survival is the minimum requirement for these two teams, however you get there. But I thought Brighton played some great football last season. And, there was a period where they looked like they were under threat, and then they suddenly started pulling results out. And if they can keep that squad togetherness, that mentality going, then I think they'll be absolutely fine next season. But it's all about how you start the season and, the first month or two, especially with this weird place that we are right now. I feel like if you get stuck in a rut, you could really be in danger. We've seen Duffy, or I'm not sure if it's officially confirmed, but I believe he's gone to Celtic on loan. Potentially that could be a full-on transfer. So who are the key players for Brighton now?
I think Lewis Dunk's obviously one of the big ones that stands out, who, the captain there for several years now. It feels like he's been linked with a move to a Chelsea, to a Manchester United, to a Manchester City for kind of 40 million regularly in and around the talk of the England squad. And I think he's absolutely pivotal for them. It goes without saying. And I think it'd be interesting as well to see what happens with Ben White, who had a really good season on loan at Leeds last year at centre half. And it was kind of those Leeds were desperate to try and sign him on permanently. But then you had Manchester City, Chelsea, Man United sniffing around him, Liverpool looking at him as well. And if Brighton can keep hold of him, then him and Lewis Dunk at the back, thinking that's very solid. I think Matt Ryan is a fantastic goalkeeper they've got there. He'll be key again. And then, I don't know, you're looking at the signings they brought in. I think Joel Veltman is a really savvy piece of business. And for just £900,000, which is a drop in the ocean these days in modern football, from Ajax, he'll predominantly play as a right back, I'd imagine, but he can play centre-half. Very comfortable on the ball, reads the game well. I think that's really good business. Adam Lallana on a free transfer could be a shrewd piece of business. Yeah, he's 32. Yeah, he's had his injury problems, but I think there's still a very good player there. And then you're looking at, goals, they could do with goals, really, if we're being honest. Alexis McAllister, I'm hoping gets a bit more game time this year. He played, I think, 9 games in the run into the end of last season. He'd been on loan at Boca Juniors randomly from Brighton, as you do. And at Argentine International, I think he's still only 19. So I think he could bring something. We saw him bring something towards the end of the season. In the Arsenal game, he came on and turned the game when there was that fun confrontation between Neil Maupay and Mathieu Guendouzi from Arsenal. So I still think they could do with, so they need goals really, but I think at the back, I think look very solid. Midfields, I don't know. You've lost the creativity of Aaron Moy going to Shanghai in China, which was that kind of came out of left field, I thought.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, he's such a technically sound footballer and such a creative mind. But Pascal Gross is still there, so there's there is quality. I just think going forward they need maybe something before the transfer window slams shut.
And I mentioned it before. I found my my prediction sheet for last season when I was cleaning out the office just today. In fact, I got Liverpool top, Man City second, and then pretty much everything wrong after that, including Sheffield United rock bottom. So what do I know with my predictions? What do you reckon about Brighton's chances of staying up? We sort of alluded to this with Villa. Are there 3 teams worse than Brighton?
Well, I don't want to annoy Brighton fans. Already, I've seen there's lots of angry Aston Villa fans with after that video we did. So apologies, Villa fans. No, I think Brighton. I think there's definitely easily 3 teams worse than Brighton. And you look at what the last 3 seasons in the Premier League, they come 15th, 17th, and then 15th again last season. And I think I could easily see Brighton coming 15th again, but who knows? They can maybe be pushing that kind of the top half of the bottom half of the table, really get that 11th, 12th spot. I think I quite fancy Brighton to be safe. Like I said, I've got a lot of confidence in Graham Potter.
It's just about questions about goals, and I think that's always a worry whenever you're looking at teams around there. You just need someone who can guarantee you goals.
Yeah, I like Maupay. I think Maupay is a really good finisher. He's shown at Brentford in a championship that he knows how to find the back of the net, and he's had spurts where he's looked good at Brighton, obviously, to step up to the Premier League. And look at the stories today, and they're linked with Darwin Núñez at Almeria, who got 16 goals last season, albeit in the second division in Spain. But it seems like Brighton and Spurs are him for him. So I think Graham Potter knows what he needs to address. Rico Henry as well at Brentford. Speaking of Brentford, is someone he's looking at left back. So I think if they can get a few more names over the line before the season kicks off, and then more importantly before the transfer window closes, I think Brighton, to me, I don't think they'll have that many concerns in terms of relegation, which means they'll be awful and Graham Potter will be sacked by Christmas probably.
Yes. Yeah, it's always the case, isn't it? Let's move on and talk about Burnley, though. The question, it felt like at the end of last season, is not if, but when Sean Dyche was going to leave. He's still there right now. What's going on with him?
Oh, I feel sorry for the man. I feel sorry for the fella. Obviously, he's got a soft spot in the heart of you as a Chesterfield legend. The captain there back for your famous cup run when you may have knocked out Wrexham in the quarterfinals. But yeah, you're thinking, what more can Sean Dyche do? Last season he got them to 10th, which was, and it was just, he got the same points as Sheffield United in 9th place. It was only 2 points off Arsenal in 8th. He's been there for 8 seasons, and I mean he's had them promoted twice, and then since they got promoted, he won the championship 15-16 season. They've gone on to get 16th, 7th, 5th, or 15th, and 10th now this season. So with the resources he's got, I think that is his problem. Is he's just kind of saying to the board, like, look, how much further can I take this without you giving me some more funds? I can't. There's nothing more for him to do. I mean, we've talked on like non-stop about certain players who maybe won everything and where do they go? Leo Messi being one of those where there's nothing left for him to do at Barcelona. And in the same school of thought, but completely different, is Sean Dyche. Is, well, what more can he actually do at Burnley? Unless he gets some backing from upstairs, and but where does the money come from? That's the thing with Burnley. It's not a cash-rich club, so I can see why the board aren't giving him a massive load of money to spend, because they haven't really got it. But I just think as a manager, he's done a phenomenal job there, and I don't know what more you can expect from him.
Yeah, I believe the catalyst for the whole argument when it originally kicked off, because that story, I mean, sure, for Burnley fans was kind of bubbling under the surface, but for casual football fans like myself, it kind of came out of nowhere that Dyche was suddenly going to be leaving Burnley. You know, you could see he was frustrated, but never to the point of just like, right, that's it. I believe it was centering around sort of Jeff Hendricks. I know there was an issue where I think they released Phil Bardsley, or they didn't re-sign him, and then about 2 days later, they signed him to a contract, and it was just really, really disorganized, and I feel for him that I have worrying echoes of like Charlton under Kirbishley is the thing my mind immediately goes to in terms of a club that just collapses once the man at the top changes. Bolton is another really good example. When they tried to change who they were, obviously it's slightly different. They sort of threw a lot more money at the problem, and that's obviously come back to haunt them since then. But I think all he needs to do is point at Bournemouth and say, look, you know, they're a club that casual football fans like myself will go, they're not even in the bottom 5 clubs to go down, let alone bottom 3. But it can come out of nowhere, and when you're stuck in that situation, it can be terrifying. And I know the Burnley fan that I know, my friend's wife, is always just bare minimum 40 points, and then we'll go from there, sort of thing. I went to see Burnley Newcastle as a result of that, and it was one of the worst games of football I've ever been to. But and Premier League games, I should say. I realised as a Chesterfield fan, that's a low bar. Like I say, I'm very biased. I'm a huge fan of Sean Dyche, Chesterfield captain for our 97 FA Cup semi-final against Middlesbrough. Screw you, David Ellery, once more. But it feels like a house of cards that will collapse without Dyche at the top.
Yeah, very much so. I think what's also scary about the Bournemouth example is that they actually spent money as well, and it happened to them. All it takes is a few things to go wrong, and that's it. The wheels come off. Yeah, it was Sean Dyche. I think Jeff Hendrick, I think I thought he was a really good player for them, and for him to go on a free transfer. It's one thing when he was linked with a free transfer to AC Milan, but then he's ended up going on a free transfer to Newcastle. And no disrespect to Newcastle, but AC Milan are a slightly bigger club. But I think Hendrick will be a loss. Joe Hart's gone on a free transfer, which I don't think is a loss to Burnley in the slightest. Obviously, he ended up at Spurs. And Aaron Lennon's was released, and he looks like he's off to Turkey, I was reading today. But there's those three, the big names that have left. They've not signed anybody yet, particularly for the first team squad anyway. You're thinking, well, I don't, honestly, for Sean Dyche, I don't know how he can improve what he's got. You're thinking, well, could he maybe sell? Could they cash in on Dwight McNeil? He's been brilliant in the last 18 months or so, and it's been linked with any and all of the big boys. And you're thinking, well, do you cash in on him and then use that money elsewhere to strengthen the squad? But I can't see Burnley getting anywhere close to 10th right now. That's such a brilliant job he did last season to get them to that spot.
No, I think Dwight McNeil is a crucial player for them. We've talked in the past about the goalkeeper situation with Nick Pope and just how good he is. I'm a big fan of Ben Mee as well. I think they've got a decent squad, but as always, as we say this with whether it be people challenging for the title or people trying to stay up, if you don't refresh that squad, you're in real trouble.
Yeah, they need to bring us some fresh blood from somewhere, and maybe Nick Pope's somebody that goes to free up some funds, with Chelsea supposedly looking at him as a replacement for Kepa. But Ben Mee, like you, I think so underrated over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and James Tarkowski with him as well. Just two real solid centre halves, a little bit in a way like Lewis Dunk and Shane Duffy were for a couple of seasons at Brighton before. Shane Duffy's now departed for Celtic. But yeah, they need to freshen up the squad somehow. And you're thinking, well, see who's there on free transfers, like Brighton snapped up Adam Lallana. But I don't know. I fear for Burnley a little, and I fear for Sean Dyche, because if he doesn't get any kind of, I'm not saying he doesn't get any backing, but if he can't bring in enough fresh legs and new faces to the squad, and this squad does find itself at the bottom of the table, then that's a knock on his reputation. When I don't know what more could he really do with what he's got at the moment.
Yeah, the difficulty is if they struggle when you get to around Christmas time, it's going to be a case of, well, you don't even really want to be here, despite the fact obviously he's been such a brilliant servant to the club, and have we all sort of come to the end of the road together? So I don't think Burnley will get relegated despite all of this. But I'd be concerned if I was a Burnley fan about the lack of sort of transfer activity.
Yeah, very much so. And it does feel kind of a little bit like the Bournemouth situation last summer, where you thought maybe now's the right time for Eddie Howe to go and for everybody to part ways and have a new manager and new impetus to the squad. And maybe now also to be kind of feels like the natural time for Sean Dyche to leave. But then where does he go? Just take time out. But I think, they need to do some business before the window. They need to I think they need some midfield players for me, really. Jeff Hendrick, I think, is a really big loss. Because look, going forward, and Chris Wood leads the line well, and Ashley Barnes, and we've said at the back that they when they're at it, they're one of those teams where they can go on a run for 3 or 4 games and be really solid at the back, where they're kind of impenetrable. But you always feel like they need a bit more of a spark. Burnley, they're a team that sometimes can be a bit tough to watch. But you look at who's out there. I don't know. Harry Wilson was one name I thought maybe would be a good move for him. But that would cost, and I don't think he's been linked there. I was just looking at who may be available, and Liverpool are looking to offload him. And I think someone like him would be a great fit. Someone you could just let have a bit of freedom. He's got that spark. He can do something different. But that's just me purely speculating right now.
And in terms of Dwight McNeil, I think it's relatively easy to convince him to stay at Burnley because he's almost guaranteed first team football. And I've heard whispers. I mean, we've got a year to go that he could play himself into the England side. It's always sort of spoken about. He's such a talent when he's on his game. And like you say, that with the good thing they've got about Burnley is with Wood and Barnes, they've got such a stellar strike force. You just know where the goal is and knowing when push comes to shove where they can get goals, and they're just a tough side to play. It's an age-old thing to say. I'm a bit annoyed if they start going on a bit of a bad run, because I always found James Tarkowski is a reliable sort of relatively cheap defender for fantasy football. Can always score you a few points. But yeah, I think they'll be fine. But what do you reckon in terms of a finishing position this season?
I think looking at it right now, I'd say, like I said, I don't think I think 10th is beyond them. Even in their wildest dreams, I don't think 10th is possible. But I think they will be safe. But I think it'll just be one of those where, I don't know, it'll be a bit of an up and down season where it's not really great to watch, and they'll end up maybe 16th, 15th sort of thing. I think that's what we've been looking at, where maybe comfortably 14th at a push. But I just think, I don't know, it's a strange one with Burnley. There's just, I don't know what Burnley fans expect. The Burnley fans seem to obviously be very happy with Sean Dyche, but it's like, I don't know what the upstairs expect really, or what they want, or if this is just for Burnley to become 10th in the Premier League is fantastic. For them to have been the Premier League team for the last couple of seasons on the bounce, and get respectable finishes is great, and that's maybe just the level that Burnley are at, and that maybe last season was kind of their peak, and it's just kind of floating around. Bolton was a great example you mentioned before, where Bolton were very much that sort of team where maybe once or twice they kind of sneaked towards an 8th spot, but other than that, they were just comfortably in the middle of a table, and that was just who they were. And maybe that's what Burnley will be again next season.
Yes, don't rush out and get rid of your manager just because a shiny new one's come along, because we've seen that happen with so many other clubs. Ian Dowie, for example. Right, let us know your thoughts on that. It'd be fascinating to know Brighton and Burnley fans' thoughts on all this in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Football, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily football podcasts when you're out and about. And you can continue the conversation on Twitter at WhatCultureFC. Watch there. Follow both of us. Andrew, where can people get you on Twitter?
At Cultured Left Peg.
You can find me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at WhatCultureFC, as I said. But for now, this has been the Premier League season preview for Brighton and Burnley. My thanks to Andrew Pollard. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.